name is Pavan Davra. Welcome to Precious Brain Lab, where we talk on brain disorders, brain connectivity, and brain development. In today's episode, we're going to understand how does dopamine affect our lives. Since I've been researching on dopamine, the part of me talking on this is to make you realize that how just dopamine affects the way we think, the way we behave, and the way we recklessly go about and shop and do all the other things. Where dopamine, on the other hand, can also motivate you to do more things in life in general to make you feel stronger, isn't it? But why is it so difficult? Why is it difficult to understand that dopamine is one of the, its involvement not only in motivation, but also can affect your brain drastically if you continue to spike dopamine unnecessarily. And that's the reality of dopamine. In this Precious Brain Lab, we're going to unfold many things about dopamine so you can understand how its effects are seriously making it difficult for our human life, isn't it? How people are getting addicted, and why is it that we're still hankering after dopamine. So to begin with, as you can see, research into dopamine deficiency found in Parkinson's disease, acting excessively in schizophrenic patients, and mediating the internal reward system of the brain. This is one of the major functions of dopamine. When it comes to research, means we're trying to understand and unfold the part of dopamine on a deeper level. Why is that? Because Parkinson's disease has something to do with dopamine. Schizophrenic has to do a lot with dopamine. And reward and recognition system also depends on dopamine, which means there are many other factors as well. I'm just talking on these three because these three are the majorly vast scientists research on. Usually what happens is when we research on these areas, we generally don't realize that how much are we making it difficult for ourselves, especially when it comes to reward and recognition. Most part of our problems, our mental problems, comes from reward and recognition. How big dopamine is, try to understand how big this is. I'm not just talking in terms of just one area, but this is where the whole world is just hankering after. Reward, recognition, reward, recognition. And this is where the toxicity increases inside our brain, because dopamine is affecting our brain on a deeper level. How dangerous that is. So, if we are continuing in this process, then we're also making a big mistake in supplying those thoughts with dopamine. Aren't we doing that? We're using gadgets, we're using, things like alcohol, drugs. We're supplying dopamine. So 3 major areas for research comes from Parkinson's disease, schizophrenic, and reward and recognition. We're going to talk today on just one area of dopamine, and that is reward and recognition. How it is affecting the brain. And you should know this because we're also going to talk on actors and actresses and how are they getting affected by dopamine as well. I'm not going to pinpoint on specifically on actor and actor, but in general, that how it's affecting them as well. And why is it difficult to simply just, get to the point of understanding, yes, dopamine is affecting our lives, isn't it? If that is a reality, then we should also understand that how to understand the system and control it, isn't it? So to begin with, let us find out. So as you can see, that there is this circuitry. You can see the brain. There are different colors. That's blue, green, and red. So the blue one is called, the blue circuit is called the mesocortical, which means cognition, memory, attention, emotional behavior, and learning. That blue line is more vastly spread out in the cortex, in the major areas of the neocortex. This is where you get most of the motivation also. Like, I want to move forward. I want to do it. I want to just make it happen. Behavior is in control. You learn new things. Your attention is really, really high when you're learning something. Memory turns out to be good. And there is also cognition where, you kind of you can make a better decision as well with the help of, spiking your dopamine. So then what happens is when you look at the green is for the intersections. You see the sagittal cut, you would see that it goes down to, these, if you see the sections of the green that goes down to the corpus callosum, you would see that it talks about movement, sensory stimuli. So that's where you would see that all the movement, the motivation after motivation, you want to make it happen. You want to make a move. You want to do it. So that's what you do when you're in that moment. The dopamine spikes when you do that movement. Then comes the mesolimbic. I've talked about this earlier. Mesolimbic is vastly involved in pleasure, reward, seeking behaviors, addictions, emotional perceptions. You could also say that, it comes from the part of, mesolimbic is one of those traits where it's seriously involved in killer feelings. You can't just get rid of these feelings, isn't it? When it comes to reward and recognition, when it comes to seeking behaviors, yes, why not? If that person is doing this, I'm going to do that same thing over, isn't it? You get motivated and you do that behavior as well, isn't it? Then addictions. How many of us are addicted to sugar, to alcohol, sex addictions, porn addictions, masturbations, all of these surfaces, like food addictions. We're just hankering after addictions. And that was where it comes from, because dopamine is highly motivating you to do that part of that addictions. Then comes the emotions. Of course, dopamine also involved in that area where it makes you, too emotional as well. It can switch you off and put you in depression. So mesolimbic is actually making it very difficult. Perceptions. How many times dopamine has made this kind of, behaviors where, dopamine spike and you have these perceptions about others. Oh, you know what? I know what this is all about. I can perceive, I can understand this, how this thing is functioning or how this person is behaving. That perception is pretty much high in rate from mesolimbic. So mesolimbic is the most utilized by the human being, because this is where 99% of the world's population is addicted to. If you want to see the mesolimbic, you'll clearly see in terms of just one country. I'm not being biased, but if you go to Pakistan, you'll see that mesolimbic is high rate. It's pretty much high, where people are seriously involved in pleasure, reward, and addictions. How many people are addicted to drugs, sex addictions, alcohol, porn? They'll have sex with male, they'll have sex with female, they'll have sex with animals. You could see that, in that country. But that was just an example that how dopamine makes it very difficult for you to understand whether you're doing it right or wrong. So when it comes to a certain circuitry, what are we looking at? We are looking at a form of foundation. What is that foundation we're looking at? We're looking at a foundation of synapses. Why would the synapses happen even when they're doing something wrong? Because dopamine does not have any intelligence, isn't it? It's not like an intelligent neurotransmitter. It's a very, very, it's like an orchestrated in such a way that it is connected with your senses. And that's where it's very dangerous. Because let's say if you have certain amount of information inside of you about cars, about women, man, about dating, love, about, naked bodies. So when you have these things, these are so hard that even if you think of it, you start to, stimulate, like the body gets stimulated in such a way that you want that pleasure, isn't it? And this is the hard ones. Now the minor ones are food, or let's say, gifts. These are the minor ones. But these are so smartly orchestrated that the eyes perceives, the touch, the sound, the taste, they all are connected with dopamine. And that is where most of the people are seriously getting, they're getting addicted. They want that touch. Because dopamine loves the idea of touching, especially when it comes to, opposite sex. You want to touch because dopamine likes that, isn't it? And that part of that system, it'll motivate you to go forward and touch. Attraction, dopamine spikes, just go ahead and talk to that person. Children's impulsivity is really high in dopamine because in all these sections, children's are also involved. You cannot, get them out of this side. So when we talk on children's, and children, what are we talking in children's? Children's means impulsivity. Impulsivity is really high. Boom, it spikes, and they want it. They'll cry, they will be stubborn, they'll not understand, and boom, they want it. The spike is really hard. They don't understand that system because they're very young. They're children. So that's another way to look at it. Old people, when it spikes, it is a different because it's all about patient games. That they don't immediately just go and do anything they want because they're so mature that they'll relax and they'll do it. But that spike is there in them as well. They'll get overexcited or they'll get joyed by certain behaviors, certain emotions. That's because of dopamine spike. So middle age is different, teenagers is different, and in 25 to 35 you'll see a different signs of dopamine. So the sections play a different role in dopamine. Please try to understand. It's not just about one part that I'm talking. The several sections are involved in hard spike of dopamine. So when we understand till here, then try and understand synapses. So further on, we'll try and understand more because you'll get to learn more on dopamine. If you don't understand the normal system, we won't understand the other stuff as well, which is why I had to put up the basic ones to make you understand what does dopamine does to your brain. So let us find out more on this. So as you can see, dopamine neurons project extensively to striatal and cortical regions where they mediate a diverse array of functions, including reward-related learning, drug-related synaptic plasticity, working memory, and motivation. Look at that synapses. The ones that are releasing out from the top is a presynaptic membrane, and down there that's the postsynaptic. Pre and post, there's a special membrane in both of them. The presynaptic is releasing that chemical, and bottom, just below that, that's the postsynaptic, where it's all absorbing those chemicals. So there's a special type of membrane that actually absorbing these chemicals, and that's how the synapses happens, which is why I put up this picture. Now, the including of reward-related learning, drugs-related synaptic plasticity, working memory, and motivation. Wow, look at how extensively dopamine is making it difficult for human beings, isn't it? Working memory, you can also motivate yourself and do more on learning and memorizing. But what happens the other way around? This is very interesting to learn about dopamine from here. Let's say when it comes to working memory, dopamine spikes. It spikes. When it comes to burst, the working memory goes out of focus. Wow. Now learn this. I'll give an example. Let's say I'll give you a good example on this. We're on Precious Brain Lab, and I'm not going to just do it easily. Precious Brain Lab means deeper evaluation. Let's say you are dieting. Famous, isn't it? The working memory has motivated you to diet, and you're doing your diet on a regular basis. You're motivating yourself. You want to make it happen. You want to lose weight, and you're concerned about it. You're doing well. You go out, you go to a store, you do all your shopping. In the end, you're tired. And water is not helping you. Water is not helping you. You're motivated, but water is not helping you. What do? Excuse me. Right at that spot, please remember this. Your previous memory that's actually involved in all the other sugary things that you have taken. You're running out of options. Dopamine is still spiked in you. You don't want to do it. But that one thought in the head and the eyes will look over and they spot something. Boom, there is a burst of dopamine and you go out of focus. Finish. You'll go and drink that. No stoppage. You cannot stop it. You cannot stop this feeling. Why? Because dopamine burst like let's say you have a surprising candy. You put in your mouth. They say there is a surprising flavor. So when you put in your mouth, there's a burst of flavor. It's an unexpected, right? That's what happened with dopamine. You will look over. The eyes will sending the pathways. It will send the signal back in there. And dopamine will burst. And you'll be running out of control. You want to go and have that drink. Finish. You're gone. There is no control. You lose your control. Synapses are seriously firing at a really high rate. They're sending out a lot of dopamine. You're out of control. You want to drink it. You'll forget about what his dieting is all about. You lose it because you see it. It's just 10 feet away from you. You've seen it. And now you want to go and have it. That's it. No finish. Because that previous experience is so vast that dopamine spiked really hard. It's burst in your head like a flavor. In an instant, in seconds, it burst. In seconds, milliseconds, burst. There's a sensation in the body. You want to go and have it. Boom, finish. Control is out of control. You want to go and have it. I don't care. Out of focus. Working memory has lost its way because now you want to go and drink it. Finish. It is, these are just one example. There are many examples. Children's, if I talk on children's, even when you explain them, don't do this now. I'll give you later. They'll say, okay, after a couple of minutes, no, I want this. I don't like this. Especially in food. When you try to explain them, please don't do, have this. You're not keeping well. Don't do it. Sometimes children are stubborn. When you present them that food and when you give them to eat, dopamine spiked in there. I want that food. I don't need this. I don't care. I want that. They'll be stubborn. They won't want it because the opposite of that reality is dopamine spike, which has already spiked in children previously before taking that meal, which means that meal is so sad that it'll go opposite that thinking pattern. The brain switched to dopamine. Children does not understand this. And there's just spike, boom, finish. They want it. The burst has started. They won't eat that. And they'll leave it and they'll go. This is just one example of synapses that happens inside the brain. Now we're going to talk the real deal. In the recent past, scientists had done a research. I love scientists because I come from that place. I come from the place of the scientific brain. I love the ideas of scientists. I keep myself with them, and that's where I belong, and nowhere else. Even when I have to understand the animals, I still have the fellow mates on the different sides where you could talk to the scientists and make things work. So my life is completely into scientific understanding, and that's where my headspace comes from. So let us find out more on this. One of the scientists did this, and I'm really, really, really thankful to him that what he did was extremely good. But then the experiment was done by these scientists, and they post the part of their thesis that how it happened. But I just brought the few of it just to make you realize what actually happens inside the brain. The entire thesis is all about the rodent and how the burst happened inside the brain. But then that part of investigation is so deep that even this one video is really difficult to make a normal person to understand how this has happened inside a mice brain or rodent brain. So I don't want to get to that part. So as you can see, when you receive a reward, the average stimulation duration is 5 to 20 minutes. Between 5 to 20 minutes, this results in the electrical stimulation of VTA increased in nucleus accumbens and medial prefrontal cortex. NCA means nucleus accumbens and MPFC means medial prefrontal cortex. These elevations were sustained from several minutes to more than an hour post stimuli receiving the reward. Oh my goodness. I wanted an evidence to show that dopamine does not just spike and drops down. No. Because I had done a deeper analysis on human beings, especially when I used to go for shopping areas and I used to just watch them. And after the shopping, I used to spot some of them. I used to talk to them and I used to ask them how is the shopping? And I'm just curious to ask, and my way of asking was a bit different because the product they used to buy, and I used to ask them, how's the product and why did you buy? Because you got to be manipulative if you want to know certain information on your science. You can't just directly asking them. And then in the end, you can tell them, why did you ask them? In the end, you can honestly reveal why did you ask them. But at the beginning, you got to be manipulative to understand the brain. So I just asked them simple questions about the product and stuff. Actually, what happened after receiving that reward, this happened months ago when I started researching on dopamine. So the lady just kept talking about it. After receiving that reward, she went on talking about it. That. She started showing me the product as well. She was so happy. The point of this is that it also burst. Now, when that burst happened, you receive that reward, right? But after receiving it, it still hangs around the brain. And that's where I got shocked. Excuse me. The next thing that I did was I asked a couple of people who were buying cars. They bought the car. And then when I asked her after buying the car, they were extremely happy. I know car is a big thing, but they were so extremely happy. But when I asked them about the day they booked that car, they said we were extremely excited. There was a sleep disturbance. They were just waiting for that day when they receive that car, when they get that car, So they did that booking after 4 days, they received that car. And a night before they received that car, they couldn't sleep. So imagine how much dopamine is released in the brain before they receive that car. This is how you do the evaluation. You try to understand the system of reward by talking to people. If you take them to the lab, they're not going to be comfortable to do any tests on them. So you got to go out and do all of this. This is the hard work of neuroscience. You've got to be out in the field as well. Not always it's about lab. Please try to understand. You have to go out and do stuff as well to get information. And it was quite a delightful moment, you could say that. But there are many sections where after receiving the reward, and then I saw a couple of videos where, a couple just bought a house, and then after a couple of days, they put up another video about how they're excited and they're moving into it. And, after receiving that home, right after they bought that house, till 1 week, full week, I followed them and I wanted to see what happens. 1 whole week, they were super excited about that home. And the video's on the YouTube, I just saw that video because I wanted to see about dopamine. So I just checked that video. For 1 whole week after buying that home, they were super excited. What is happening is, after that release, you buy something, the dopamine also remains in you for a long time. That feeling of goodness remains with you. Why? Because the eyes, the sound, the taste, they all olfactory. They're all involved with it. They're constantly sending that signaling inside the brain, and they're making you feel good until that thing is gone to the extension. The thing is still remaining in your head. Just imagine that how this dopamine is creating an havoc in the brain when continually spiked. And this is not just about, just one part of it. If you continually spike, then there are also many problems with dopamine. Imagine that I was talking about, actors and actresses. Before we get to the next slide, let me just explain you this, what I'm talking about. There is a side effect of dopamine. What is that? If you continually remain in that dopamine and you keep spiking, then there is also a phase where you will seek for dopamine spike, which means that spike is done, it's finished. Now, the brain is actually restoring the dopamine. To restore dopamine in us, it takes time. So what do you do in the meanwhile? To maintain dopamine is the most expensive thing to do, because dopamine does not easily get spiked. It wants expensive things like, you go to malls, you want to shop, you want to take drugs, you want to drink alcohol. Now imagine these actors and actresses, they have to maintain the level of dopamine. And not every time they can maintain that, because the body also need to restore dopamine, right? It's not like just about that spike is done and dopamine has to be restored. And if you continually stress that part of that dopamine, then you're going to end up having mental illness. So where is that problem? The problem is that when the actors and actresses, when they spike dopamine, they want to maintain that level of dopamine, and they cannot do that. Now imagine J-Lo. My goodness, how many marriages, and how she has been turned into some kind of high level of dopamine. To maintain that dopamine, she's spending a lot of money. Imagine, I'm giving you the examples. To maintain dopamine, you got to spend a lot of money. And why do you want to do that? Because they want to be in the limelight. They want to be that best. They want to prove them best. That motivation is very toxic. Because once they get to that part, then the body will start to take dopamine from outside, which means the craving will increase after the burst. So what the actors and actresses do, they spend a lot of money on buying new cars, buying new home, drugs, sex, breaking up with partners quite easily. I'm not interested in you. You know what? I'm bored with you. I want to have a new relationship. They'll fight. They'll argue. They do all kinds of things. They even get into some controversial things. That's all because they want to maintain the level of dopamine. Please try to understand. I'm not against of actors and actresses, but they don't understand what they're doing to their brain is really wrong, because they don't know how to maintain the level of dopamine. That business is all about dopamine. So you could obviously say that they can also have a lot of mental illness, mental issues. They struggle with their depressions and anxiety as well. They do that. How many of them have that? They struggle with it. And in the end, they regret whatever they did was wrong. That's because of the spike of dopamine. To maintain the level of dopamine is expensive. Once it's spiked and you continue to, you want more of it, then you got to spend a lot of money. And that money is of no use, because you're not going to get any benefit out of it. You're actually making it difficult for yourself to maintain that level of dopamine. So learning and memory is also deficit. You cannot learn anything in that position as well. You'll be biased. You'll be extremely motivated to do things, but you'll be biased. You'll be so biased you want to kick off people as well. I'm everything. Look at bipolar disorder. Finish. That release of that dopamine inside kills the cognition. They have a very, very bad aggression in them. They go to the maniac phase and they get pretty mad. Look at schizophrenics. Finish inside. God, what the hell happens inside? It's all about the dopamine. It's pretty much intense. Reward and recognition. Problems in PTSD as well with dopamine receptors. There's so many things, this dopamine does not leave you at any position. They can make your life living hell. But any which ways, let us try and understand more on this. So going back to the deeper presentation, some of the basic things that really spike in dopamine, let us try and understand that first. So what is it? As you can see, shopping, promotion, buying a new house, getting into a new relationship, starting a new business, career change, getting out of a trash party, going out to a trash party, teenagers, wow, vacations, how many of us love that? Getting married, of course, dopamine will spike on this day, especially when you're getting married. And those days before getting married, you're not only nervous, you may be impulsive, you may, you might spike a lot of dopamine that's motivating you. You'll be super excited, you may be joy. And then shifting to a new place. Wow, this is also like exciting stuff. I'm going to move into a new home. I'm really excited and I want to do so. These are some of the areas that really spikes dopamine. And when dopamine spikes, then you know what happens inside the brain, right? Those sections are so important in our lives that because of these things, we spike a lot of dopamine, isn't it? We don't care about, what the others are saying or how the outcome is going to be, because dopamine doesn't like that. It likes the part of that receiving. Receiving, that is what it wants. Receiving. That's it. And with the help of somatic sensory, it gets even more difficult to escape dopamine. Somatic sensory is a very, very smart thing. When we talk on eyes, nose, the smell, the taste, the vision, the hearing, the touch. Please understand, these things are so bad that they can really spike in you and make it really difficult for you. How does that happen? Because dopamine does not just spike, it's not an independent thing. Because it is connected to your receptors. So when it spikes, it makes it very difficult for you to escape. And that's where it is beautifully orchestrated in us. Bad or good, it'll spike in both ways. So when we get to this point of those terms of dopamine, then we're going to understand on deeper level what actually happens from here on. So as you can see, that there's this fixed mindset and growth mindset. What is happening in these two conditions? Excuse me. Dopamine antagonists administered either systematically or directly into PFC and striatum minutes after behavioral training can disrupt memory consolidation. So imagine that there is this fixed mindset and growth mindset. This part of that information I took from a scientist who was experimenting on a rodent, and he administered the dopamine antagonist directly into PFC and striatum. And then when they were doing the behavior training, you could see that there's a disrupt memory consolidation. So in human beings, when there's a burst of dopamine, the behavioral training also disrupts in them as well. Especially when it comes to growth mindset and fixed mindset. How many of you, when it's spiked the dopamine, we turn into a fixed mindset, isn't it? We all do that. When the spike is hard, we cannot control ourselves. We cannot. And that's the reality of dopamine. If the spike is so hard, that it won't allow you to stay normal. Even if you know that this is wrong, you will still do it. Now, why do I say that? When you release in PFC some way, it's like it's motivating you to do it because working memory is involved. But striatum, no. Striatum is a bad area for dopamine release, especially when people are weak in learning and memorizing. People who don't have difficulty in learning and memorizing, striatum will pull them. Go and do it. No problem. Teenagers, I'll explain you what happens. Let's say the teenager is going for a party, trash party. Mom and dad says, don't go out. You need to complete, your examinations are coming up. You're not going anywhere. No, sit at home and do it. They're not going to listen. Prefrontal cortex is weak because they're teenagers. Striatum is strong. So when they send the signal, the dopamine has spiked. When they ask the permission, they said no. The dopamine sent that signal, but striatum is strongly sending that signal. Somehow they will make that decision and they will do some kind of nonsense and they will go and do it. That behavior is lost. To control themselves and realize, I need to work on my examinations. I need to sit down and study. No. They will do it. They'll somehow do it. Let the parents sleep, I'll go. Let the parents sleep, I'll go. And somehow I'll move out, I'll go for the party. I'll fully blown my head. Dopamine has spiked. And to maintain the level of dopamine, I'll take drugs, alcohol. I'll have sex with my partner. Even if I'm in college, I don't care. Examinations, I'll do anything. Then tomorrow when they go for the examination and finish, they cannot sit and work on that. This is a small example. There's so many examples on dopamine spike that I'm talking about. The growth mindset stops. This is where the scientists, the research that I do on dopamine is hard. It's deep. And when I sit and I analyze things, I make it sure that what can we do to stop these nuisance that's happening inside the brain. I'm not in some kind of counseling or psychiatric department. No, there's neuroscience. And we have nothing to do with any of them. It's all about deep understanding. The evaluation on shopping and understanding how teenagers are getting impulsive in these areas. So talking about the pre and post synaptics, when we understand that part, that the research means you have to be accurate on what you're talking about. And this is that area that most of us show a lot of impulsivity. The accuracy of dopamine is so high in this section that it makes it really difficult, not only for teenagers, for grown adults, for old people, even children's. This area is highly involved in dopamine, pre and post synaptics. What is that? Let us try and understand. So as you can see, that there is this pre and post excessive release of dopamine can cause impulsivity and compulsivity, which lessens the capacity of what is right or wrong. This is very, very, very important to understand what I'm saying. Let's say you must have seen you see that in that picture, that how the lady is excited. She looked at something and now boom, she wants it. Like she's super excited. This happens in children's, the adults, the teenagers, the old age. At any given age, if that receptor is involved in buying, especially in shopping, what is involved in shopping is the eyes. The human being eyes is so powerfully orchestrated that connection between the dopamine and eyes are extremely powerful. It is so powerful, imagine the flower and the stem. That is how they're connected. You break the flower, the stem is still there. The flower will grow again. So what happens if you cut off dopamine? The dopamine is that stem. It will spike it somehow. That is how it is interconnected. It's so powerful. You cut the flower grows again. You cut something out, and then again, the dopamine will spike it somehow. It will bring that spike out. The stem will bring that flower again. It will regrow the flower again. That is how dopamine does to your brain. And that is what I'm talking about in shopping. What are we trying to understand? Pre and post excessive release of dopamine. Now we're talking in scientific understanding. What is that? Pre means, let's say, the thought of shopping has excited you. So you spike dopamine. You're on your way to the shopping. Dopamine has spiked. When you reach that place, double the capacity of that pace. Your brain is highly, highly active. Amygdala has awakened you fully. Finish. Fully awakened you. Now it wants that pleasure. Remember this. It wants that pleasure. You've already done your job. You've done your job. Now it wants that pleasure. It doesn't matter how much money you got in your pocket. Please try to understand. It wants that pleasure. It's not going to leave you easily. It won't leave you easily. You must have seen, I give an example. People go for shopping. And when they shop, after they shop, they get tired. They say, you know what, I'm hungry. It's been 2 hours I've been shopping. I'm tired. I want to eat something. I want to drink something to feel good. Why is that? Because when that burst happening inside the brain, presynaptic, which means before shopping, you've spiked it, it reaches its peak, the heart peak. And when it reaches that heart peak, then you finish. Heart peak means you'll forget about your thirst, you'll forget about your hunger, you'll forget about any important thing that you need to do. All you know is you'll even forget about your time. 2 hours, 3 hours, you're just shopping. And when you come to the realization about something, reward is released in your brain, and then you feel good, you'll go ahead and you want to eat and drink something. After the release of that reward, you'll do it. And if you don't get anything, then that dopamine will spike somewhere else, which is eating something to release that reward, which means you have switched your reward because it's still in that shopping mall. And if you don't find anything, then the brain will switch off and you want something to eat to feel good. In both these sections are finished. And imagine, I give an example. Next time you have a spike, don't buy anything and don't eat anything, and you come home. See what happens. I'm giving you that challenge. Let's say you saw something in a mall and you want to go and buy. So next time you go to that shop, you touch, you feel everything, but don't buy. I challenge you in this video. Do that. Don't buy. Go home. Don't even eat anything. And see what happens. See what happens. And you resist yourself for 1 week. It's going to be very difficult. It's a challenge. Do this. And see what happens. I'm telling you, do it intentionally. Go to that shop. Look at it. Feel it. Keep it back to the shelf and walk out. Don't even eat anything. Walk out from that mall and go home and sit down. This is the challenge. See what happens for 1 week. It's going to get very difficult as the days pass or days by. And it should be a limited edition stuff. It shouldn't be like that product is available. This product should be exclusive. Like, you've been waiting for it for months. And when you don't buy it and you just keep it there, go home and wait for 1 week. Excuse me. If somebody buys it and you're sitting there, it's going to make you feel depressed. This is the strength of dopamine that I'm talking about. really want something to happen in your life, this is the real thing that dopamine does to your brain. I'm no kidding about it. This chemical is so bad that, it will empty your pocket, but it wants that reward. Relationships, when it comes to dopamine, I don't care. Why did I be in this relationship with you? Because I wanted to be with you. You're not even there. If you're not going to be with me anymore, then I'm going to go somewhere else and find someone else. I don't care. I want to have sex. Motivation. And if you're not going to give me now, then I'm going to get pretty much violent. Because I'm not liking this. Then why should I be in a relationship with you if you're not going to have sex with me? Motivation. Motivation to move on from that relationship is a spike of dopamine. Impulsivity inside the brain. There's the plaques, the part of that brain that actually releasing it, VT and striatum. The combination is an evil combination. They release, they'll go somewhere else. Why? Because the idea that there is a lot more out there. I don't want this. People generally, when they get into a relationship, especially the ones who are like a playboy, playgirl type, where they flirt with a lot of men and women, these people have a lot of problem in committing to one relationship. Why? Because their dopamine is sort of imbalanced. That is not normal. Because the idea is they want the pleasure. They don't want to be restricted. Dopamine doesn't like the part of being restricted. The downsides of dopamine is that if I don't get it from you, I will get it from somewhere else. Even people in marriage, situation, people who are in a marriage, if they don't get sex from their partner, they'll go out and they'll have sex. That's because the spike of dopamine, they want that pleasure. They move out, they'll get somewhere else. This is the wrong way to deal with dopamine. We should try always to control that level of dopamine because many a times relationships cause a lot of problem due to sex because we don't know how to control dopamine. As simple as that. We just want the part of the pleasure. Why are we in a relationship? Because we want to have sex. That's it. But that's not how it is. To get into a relationship is a pure blessing. When you find that right person who understands you, and then to build a life together, that is relationship. And dopamine does not allow you to see that. Dopamine spike means it wants pleasure, it wants fun, it wants to touch you all the time. It wants that naked body. It wants to have a lot of sex. It wants to, demand in relationship. Dopamine has spiked. I want to be demanding in terms of, I want this from you. I want you to do this for me. Blah, blah, blah. There are so many things. This is all because of dopamine. And it's very bad. Because to maintain that level of dopamine, I told you, is very expensive. Imagine that people who are having a lot of sex, they're promoting sex in a relationship, then there are a lot of things that are still not, understood in a relationship is how to drive the relationship in a right way. Because you're having a lot of sex, there is nothing remaining apart from sex in a relationship. And that's why a lot of breakups happen. A lot of trauma happens in a relationship. Divorce cases are really high because I'm not enjoying sex with you. So I don't want to be in a marriage with you. This is a wrong way to look at it. Motivate dopamine to have a better understanding between the two in a relationship. This is how dopamine works in both conditions. If you don't motivate dopamine in each other to grow in a relationship, then that relationship is just purely based on chemicals and it's just not going to last for too long. You're going to have a lot of fights and arguments, and in the end you're going to leave your partner and walk away. You should always remain loyal to your partners. That is a blessing to be in a relationship. Well, anyways, I don't want to talk about any religion or any stuff like that, because in general, love doesn't have any relationship. But I come from a part of, mindset of one person and you're sorted. I have a tradition mind, but I'm not in a relationship, or I don't even have anybody. But I'm just saying that if I ever want to be in a relationship, then I want that person to be with me for the rest of my life. Because my mindset is that find one right person and you're sorted. Don't get into too many relationships. This is how it works for me. But anyways, I'm not interested. I'm interested in neuroscience. So I gave up the idea of being in a relationship, marriage, kids, no nothing. So now that we've come to this point of understanding that how the brain, So now that we understand that how the brain is actually trying to make it really difficult for us to understand the situations and making stuff which is not real, that is what the part dopamine does on the bad side. The good part is it motivates you to do more. That is right. But there is one more thing that we need to understand about dopamine is that's pretty much eye-opening from here on. So let us try and understand with the first representation. Let us try and understand with the first representation that I want to really talk on, understanding dopamine in a different way. So as you can see, feeding dopamine with unrealistic thoughts. The phase involved not so thoughtful or meaningful thoughts, rather to satisfy a craving of dopamine that leads to anxiety or depression when it hits reality. So feeding dopamine with unrealistic thoughts. How many of us do that? Let's say, unrealistic thoughts. Just in that slide, you would see that the lady thinking about the car accident. Well, actually, in reality, that's not happening. It's just in the head. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this? What if that? What is happening? The excessive release of dopamine causing problem in the brain to think in a wrong direction, which means we had a spike in the brain and we want to spike it really hard. So instead of putting into action, we're doing everything inside the head. So the spike goes from this level to this level. Wow. Because we're just thinking. I'll give another example. Oh, you know what? I wanted to go out for this vacation and, I've been planning a lot. If I go here, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You're super excited when you talk about it. But when it hits the reality, I don't think so I can go now. I got to wait for that. These things, the head and the reality, dopamine is dividing the brain. Please try to understand. Dopamine divides the brain into two sections. The first is unrealistic and the second is realistic, that hits bringing into anxiety and depression both. Because things that are not happening, you're making it happen inside the brain. That is why it's unrealistic. If it's not happening now, stay calm, stay patient. You don't have to really be, being really thinking about it a lot. You don't have to do anything. This is why I'm saying that whenever there is something going on in the head, you got to stop that, because when the spike of dopamine hits you in the head, you cannot think right. You will fly, which is like a time machine. You'd go ahead of time or you'll go back in time. Dopamine has the business to make your life a living hell. If you just spike, anywhere and everywhere, then anywhere and everywhere it's going to keep your brain in balance. So you should be firm, assertive, no, being disciplined. When it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I need to do this. This is the reality of dopamine, You've got to be analytical with dopamine. If you're going to be emotional, then dopamine is going to make it really hard for you to counterpart. What makes me imagine that how do you control dopamine? Dopamine are the rats, and analytical means is a part of I think it was a Peter Piper and the rats, if you've heard about that story. So I remember that name correctly, but it was some Piper, like they play that, he plays it, all the rats are following him. So that flute, that sound, that is the prefrontal cortex, that is the analytical brain. Remember that always. So when there is a spike, the rats control the rats, that's dopamine inside of us, and play the piper, play it from here, and see what happens to the brain. You're going to enjoy that spike because the more analytical you'll get, you realize what you're doing was wrong. Because that is what controls dopamine, being analytical. So now that we've reached here, what else do we need to understand about this monstrous that happens inside of us? Dopamine has two sides, like I said. One is learning and one is depression. Isn't it? Either you learn something or either you go into depression. And learning doesn't always mean about that you're in the school, college, or university. Learning means at any stage you can learn anything. It is in your hands what you want to learn. Isn't it? You can learn about cooking, driving, learning a new language, instrument. Learning is extensive. It brings so much capacity of, the possibility that are still hitting inside of us, and dopamine helps to do that. Such a good chemical. But when we use it in the wrong direction, then it's really bad. You cannot do anything. Bad or evil, dopamine spike is very bad when it comes to negative side of it. Because then you're increasingly doing more of it, isn't it? You want to do more, you want to keep doing more. So let us try and understand about this from here on. So as you can see, there is a representation of when presynaptic activity precedes postsynaptic activity, LTP, long-term potentiation, is produced. What is long-term potentiation? Long-term potentiation means is the ability to learn and memorize. You see on the side where the lady's sitting and learning and writing it down. They're on the computer, they're learning things. So that is what about learning. You're using to store in your hippocampus. You're learning. That's what's happening when presynaptic activity precedes postsynaptic activity. Long term is produced. And when the sequence is reversed, LTD, long-term depression, is produced. Wow. So let's say when the presynaptic activity precedes postsynaptic activity, long-term potentiation is produced. So when this activity is reversed, which means you're about to have depression, and you can look at the picture, one is in depression, one is in learning. In these two conditions, you see that the pictures are clearly showing the signs of dopamine. One is motivating and one is craving for dopamine, which means that dopamine has subsided and you're feeling in depression. This is the mechanism I'm talking about. Think about how all of this research that goes on inside the lab, you get so much out of it. and people say that you're harming animals. How is that possible? When people are cutting animals and eating them, when they go out there, they're damaging animals. There is no animal rights, right? Only in the lab there is animal rights. I don't want to get controversial on this video, but I'm just giving an example. We're not damaging any animals. And if we use an animal, it doesn't mean that we're going to kill them. Of course, there might be some people who do that, but I'm not that person. Because I love to, take care of them. This is what my ideology is. Not to damage them. And to get out of this controversial, I don't do experiment on animals. Which is why if people come and ask me, I say, no, I don't do an experiment on animals. No. Because I know that what's going to happen. Which is why, but look at this, the effort of scientists. They're giving this information out. How these synapses are happening inside the brain. It is hard job. It's hard job, believe me. I'm not using animals. It doesn't mean that it's easy for me to research. Which is why scientists do a lot of work, lot of hard work. It's not easy. If you think it's Sunday or Saturday, let's go on a weekend. There's no Sunday, Saturday in us. It's every day the same. You keep doing your job. You keep research. Even in sleep, you think about all of these things in your head. That is scientific succession. They're not normal life. And if you think that we killed the animals, then you're wrong, please. We love animals, but we don't destroy them. And I don't know that why do people always hit on scientists speaking on that you killed the animals, you're a monster, you don't deserve to experiment on this and that. But that is not the real truth. Please try to understand. Animal is not about destroying them in the lab. We also take care of them. We give them all the nurturing and caring in the lab. We take care of them. And I don't do that because I know what's going to happen. The moment I start, the animal control will start. Finish. They're going to run after me. They're going to, take me like, no, stop this. You can't do this. They'll come over and do all kinds of nonsense activities on me. I don't want to get into that part, which is why I don't do it. So what do? I go out, I research, I go to the jungle. If it's possible. I've not gone to the jungle yet, but I've been to the zoo and I've observed a lot of animals. So for me, it's like, being out there and trying to get more information. This is what I do. And that is a hard job. Please try to understand. And which is why people say that, you people are cruel. Where is that cruelty? What am I doing? See, I'm not using any animal. And the day I use it, finish. I'm telling you in this video, animal control will come in and they'll stop me from doing things. I'm not an animal consciousness. I'm a human being. But I don't want to get to that part. Just get back to the reality. I'm sorry I took a time out. Sometimes emotions do fall out. I cannot control it. That, why all injustice happening to us like this? And they expect us to get more answers. Please try to understand. We are human beings. And if you try to experiment on human beings, they're going to say, you're destroying the human body. Don't do this. So how do we experiment? How? Please tell us. There is nothing. All you have is to protect this, protect that, protect this. How are we going to know things? We also need some space to do certain experiment. We're not destroying animals. And that's what my heart felt out to say this. The day I swear I started, the animal rights will come in and they'll stop me. And that's why I don't do this. I don't want to deal with them. They're not going to listen. And that's why I don't do this. So I do the other way around. Long route, a lot of money spent outside to understand things. I even have plans to go to, live in a jungle for a couple of weeks, try and understand animals there. It's better. You have great national parks. You got these jungles where you can stay there for a couple of days, and then for weeks as well, you can do your experiment. You can try and understand them. So experiment doesn't mean that I'm in the lab. I can go out and do it. And that's what I'm going to keep continuing to do my things. But anyway, the presynaptic and the postsynaptic LTP. So the dopamine spike, which means that when you spike it, the learning, which means what is that LTP learning, which means that is stored in your brain for a long time. Specifically, I've given the example in the past as well. I give you now as well again, repeating that. Let's say a computer gets really bad and there's something that happened inside of it and you cannot correct it. You'll take that to the engineer. You'll stand next to the engineer and see how he does it. If that's in your arc, you'll store that inside, and next time that happens, you'll do it on your own. That is long-term potentiation, which means you're learning, you're evolving, swimming, driving, learning, right? Let's say you're learning about flying a plane. Wow, long-term, isn't it? This is what I'm talking about. That's where the dopamine spike and you learn more. Then comes the LTD. What happens? The synapses are reversed. This time, opposite. What it was doing, now it's doing the reverse. So it's a resting stage. It's not firing, it's resting stage. It's resting. Settled. Finish. Gone. Depression. This entirety demotivated. The hands, leg wrecked. Dopamine is not going to allow you to do anything. Finish. You did not get it. Now you got to be down and lower. The system is wrecked. And this can go on for years, for months and for years. Depends on you how you take this. I'm no kidding about this, because once this system gets wrecked, it's very difficult to balance it back again. Because the system are working with their senses. I'm going to talk on senses, memory and senses. That's going to give you more eye-opening. What am I saying all of this for? So you need to understand that if you're not getting a reward, don't be depressed. Try and stay calm, relax yourself, and do what you're doing in your everyday life. Continue doing your work. Move on. Don't sit there. Because once that thing is in a resting stage, you won't like anything. I'm going to be honest. You won't like anything. Whether you're sitting, you want to eat, you want to do some work, nothing is going to work. You'll be depressed sitting down. And it's really bad. This is what dopamine does. So to maintain that dopamine, it's costing you much, right? It's costing a lot. It's costing you money. It's costing you time. It's costing you a lot of energy. You can also get away from your family, your relatives, your loved ones. You can also, motivate yourself to stay together. You see, expensive it is, expensive. Let's say dopamine motivates you to bring all together. What are you going to do? Hey, you know what? I'm keeping a dinner. I want to invite everybody to come home so we can all meet and have good meal. Money goes, right? You need to buy so many things. You got to spend money. You see, this is what dopamine does. You should be calculated of what you're doing with dopamine, because dopamine means expensiveness. You're going to spend a lot of money. And that's what it does. It is the most expensive neurotransmitter. You spike, pay money, and then you're going to have this. This is what it does to you. Then comes the next part of it. What is it? Let us try and understand more on the deeper level. So as you can see, there is something that we need to learn during the part of depression. What is that? Reward reversal learning. When you don't get a reward, this is that phase the brain evaluates the process of why it didn't happen. Look at that picture. Completely sad, sitting down and feeling remorse about why it didn't happen. Why? This system is called reward reversal learning. This needs required to evaluation. Whether you go to a psychiatric department, you go to psychology, especially when you don't receive a reward, there are many different sections that attacks the brain. One of them is the VTA, and the other one is striatum. And then when you don't receive a reward, switch off. Completely resting. Finish. You're sitting down, you're feeling sad. And then that's going to drown you deep. When it's drowning you deep, it'll take you to the part of depression. If you don't come out of depression, then what happens? Bipolar disorder. And once you get bipolar disorder, it's very difficult to come out of it. Trust me. It's never easy. It's very difficult to come out of bipolar disorder once it switches off. And when bipolar disorder, what happens is they crave for dopamine cravings. What they do is they want to drink a lot. They want to spike it with drugs. They want to, beat up somebody. There's a lot of aggression. They'll give a lot of bad words. But they won't understand things. And that's the reality of dopamine. Bipolar disorder is so bad that some of them, when they get into the maniac phase, they don't realize what they're doing. I will talk on bipolar disorder as well. I have all the concept ready. I just need to make a video out of it. I'll make that as well, so you can understand what bipolar is, and schizophrenic as well, and autism as well. 3 concepts are ready. I just need to make videos. But for now, I'm making this. So when you understand that the bipolar is so dangerous, when you get to the maniac phase, it's very difficult to control them. They can also damage themselves and the other person. Why? Because dopamine is spiked hard. Similar conditions. Alcohol. They don't understand the reward reversal learning. They won't understand alcohol. They'll beat up. You see how I'm doing, right? They'll beat up. How many women are traumatized with alcohol addictive husbands? How many of them? My goodness, the number is really high. And in India, it's really high. I feel sad. Women are getting really beat up by their husbands, drinking too much. They don't understand the reward reversal learning. Why? Because they crave for dopamine. They crave. The moment they shut off, they go into withdrawal symptoms. They want to drink again, and they want to beat up their wives like hell. Finish. You are under my control. You're my slave. You're good for nothing. You don't do anything. You're rubbish. And they'll start to beat you up. Finish. Why? Because this thing is finished. This is gone. Finish. The front section is why? Because if you do an MRI scan, you see that brain is completely finished. There's nothing. I'm talking about alcoholics. Not someone who drinks it occasionally, but alcoholics who drinks every day and beat up their wives. I hate alcohol, if you ask me. I hate alcohol. Even a small percentages in cakes or in juices, throw it away. I don't need it. I believe in balance my brain, which is why I'm saying this. I know what is alcohol for the brain. That one drop is very dangerous. I don't drink alcohol, I don't drink coffee, I don't drink tea, I don't eat meats. I'm a vegetarian. I drink water. I eat fruits to chew the fibers. I soak dry fruits. I soak nuts and I eat them the next day. And I drink sometimes low-fat milk, low-fat cow milk. What is all this I do? I eat fresh food, no problem. You see, I'm in balance. But when it comes to alcoholics, their brain is wrecked because they never understand what they're doing is right or wrong. This control is gone, finish. This is destroyed. And once this is destroyed, it's very difficult to come back. That withdrawal symptom is so dangerous that they can also murder the other person. That's what the alcoholics do. I'm a clean person and I love my life. Meditation and chanting. Finish. This is my life and neuroscience. I'm happy. In a peaceful environment, I water my plants. I'm happy. I do all kinds of I live a simple life. I'm a happy man. This is how it is. So, when the reward reversal, where it is dangerous, where people drink a lot of alcohol, they cannot learn how to stop the level of drinking. But instead of that, how to increase drinking, which means reversal learning, reward reversal learning is wrecked, destroyed. This is gone. And this is why I say, please remain where you are and do your best. Don't get into alcohol, drugs, smoking. These things are bad for the brain. We're not here to destroy our brain. People say it's one life. Yes, it is one life. It is your life. Why can't you have a loving, caring, peaceful environment with you? Why do you want to spike dopamine unnecessarily to make it wrecked inside your brain? And then you got to go to the mental care department to treat yourself. Why do you want to do that? Live your life happily. Have a loving, peaceful surrounding. Caring about yourself, caring about others. Having a meaningful dialogue. Having a better emotional regulation. Balance. Exchange of, giving. You give something and they receive it, and they give something, you receive it. How beautiful that is. Balanced. You spread happiness with each other. Why do you want to get in troubles of drinking, smoking, and, all of that crazy nonsense? Drugs. Be with the people around you. 99% when people get addicted is because they're running after dopamine. That's the only thing. And that is why they cannot balance this, and it gets imbalanced, and they start to take all of these things. That is why every day I chant, every day I remain in balance, I stay calm, I'm connected to the divine, I'm connected to neuroscience, and I eat fresh food, I drink water, no other drinks, eat fruits, lot of fibers that goes inside, soak nuts, next day eat them, healthy for the body, finish, life is done, nothing more to it. This is how you live your life, well balanced. Stay close to nature and be happy. Don't fight, don't argue. That is the best thing. Sit down and talk and solve all problems. There'll be no problem at all in anybody's life. Any problem, sit down, talk. Don't get disappointed. Stick everyone together, keep everyone together and live a happy life. Simple. So we've come to this end section now. I'm sorry I took this time because I want to give you more and more information. I love to talk, I love to talk about neuroscience and life. And that is the only thing is in my life. I love this. It's my passion. And soon, if I get a chance, if my body accepts, I'll go to the jungle to do more experiments. And I am thinking about it, but I will go. So let us try and understand the last sections, and I'm going to finish it off from here on. So the end section means now you know that reward reversal learning is one of the biggest problems. Why people cannot learn? Because once they get addicted, this thing is wrecked. But people who are in depression, they can also learn through various, they can go to the mental care department, they can watch some inspirational movies, they can read stories, they can talk to people who supply love to them, who have better, they have the eyes that they want to see good in them. That's it. So talk to those people. They'll motivate you so that reward reversal learning will be more clarified in your head. But another way also you can learn, I'll make you understand. But this is the end section. So what I want to make you understand is the difference between surprise and repeating pattern. This is also part of dopamine. So try and understand these two things. The last section. Why I kept this our last section? Because this is where you're going to feed in your head and you'll understand what you need to do. So the last section, the end of it is, as you can see, surprise. What does surprise do? Surprise is DA firing burst. What means dopamine firing burst, which means there is a hard spike in the brain. Imagine that, you're staying far away from your sibling. Imagine that. And you love your sibling. You've been talking to them. And each time you call them up and you tell them, okay, we have this, I want you to come over and see me. And something else comes up and your sibling doesn't show up. So it's going on for like a couple of years. You have not met. And one day, at your birthday, a surprise visit. Finish. How are you going to feel? How are you going to react? Think about it. There's a burst of dopamine. It might be like you might also cry. My sibling is there like I love you, like, you've given me the best gift of my birthday, like you've been here. I'm happy to see you, isn't it? It's the best feeling, surprise. I love this because this is what it does. And then comes the part of a short period of spike, not effective. Repeating pattern, the opposite of surprise. So let's say you have spiked your dopamine in a certain way. Like, let's say you've drank something, an alcohol. Repeating pattern. So when you do it, it just affects for a short period of time. Then again, you go and do that. That is repeating pattern. Let's say if you've eaten a certain type of food, it gives you really a pleasure, it spikes you. But again, you'll do the same thing. You'll go back and you want to eat something else to spike dopamine. So that repeating pattern and surprise are two different things. Then comes post-DA spikes last longer. In this surprise, even after when you, let's say your sibling has come over, you're enjoying a party. When the party gets over, you're still happy to see your sibling. You'll still be happy, delightful. You'll be loving your sibling. You'll be talking a lot with your sibling. So that post-spike is longer, much longer. Repeating pattern means struggle to maintain the level of spike. What do you mean by this? Struggle level, which means once I've eaten it, it will... let's say you went out and you drink alcohol. You've drink a lot of alcohol. Now, once you've come back and that the next day when you wake up after drinking that night, you may feel hangover. You may feel headache. You won't feel good. Throughout the day, you'll struggle to move around. So it's really bad to maintain that level of dopamine. So what do people do? They drink again. Then that night, the morning they wake up, they're struggling all day. Then that night they'll drink again to feel good again. So they're struggling to maintain the level of dopamine. If they eat something nice, then that dopamine will spike for a short period. Then again you'll struggle. Then again you'll think of something else you want to eat again. Repeating patterns means you are struggling with dopamine and their levels. Then the pure bliss of happiness. In surprise, there's a pure bliss of happiness. Surprise means it just bursts out naturally. You feel good. This happiness is so good. You want to thank God. You want to thank your family. You want to thank your friends or whatever that is. But that is because that gratitude is because there's a pure bliss of happiness and surprise. That is where the dopamine makes you feel so good. It's a natural spike. You're not putting much effort. You're feeling good because there was a surprise. Then repeating pattern switches off quickly. Half an hour, 1 hour, and then it switches off. And then you're just sitting down there and just sitting on. Imagine that people who only look for sex. It's the best way to understand this. People who have a lot of sex. If they repeat that cycle as they mature, it just spikes for somewhere around 30 minutes or 1 hour. And after having sex, they quickly switch off and they don't feel good. Right after sex, they separate from their partner. They'll get up and, they'll sit down, they'll drink, they'll do something else. That's because they're repeating that cycle, which is why they don't enjoy sex. They're just doing it to spike that chemical, and the chemical subsides, and then they switch off quickly, and then they get separate from their partner. This is what happens in, this switch off quickly in repeating patterns. Then comes a part of surprise, emotional relief. Yes, it does. Emotional relief in surprise, it just makes you feel so good. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel like, I am so lucky to have this family, this life. I never felt this good, but today it was really special. Sometimes you cry. Sometimes you're overjoyed. You want to hug your family. You want to hug your partner. And you want to say, thank you so much, you all being in my life. I love you all. You see, this is a pure bliss. This is an emotional relief. It keeps you in balance. You see? And then comes a repeating pattern. Addictions are high. There's no emotional relief. The addiction will increase with time. And that is very dangerous in dopamine, which means if you're repeating certain pattern, especially sex, video games, you could say porn addictions. When you repeat patterns, addictions are high, which means you'll stick around with that pattern for a long time, especially when people masturbate a lot. That is very dangerous. World's population is high in masturbation. That's because they repeat, they get that pleasure for a little while, they switch off, and then they get tired, they go back to the reality, and then they get frustrated, they come back, they masturbate. So that pattern is very dangerous. You should learn how to balance your brain. And when you don't do that, addictions are high. Mesolimbic, I talked about it, right? Mesolimbic, very, very dangerous in addictions. But once you get to that, why masturbation is so high? Because you don't have to use logic. It's easily available. And either you imagine or either you watch some porn and you masturbate. Very, very easy. It's easily available. And nowadays available because you've got this amazing gadget, your mobile phone, right? This is what you have. Finish. Tack, tack, tack. Open. And just click and watch it. Porn is very dangerous. Don't do that. Don't do it. Don't masturbate. It's very bad for the brain. I strictly say no. Why? Because in terms of neuroscience, there's a lot of deficit that happens after masturbation. So these things need to be understood, that there's a difference between repeating pattern and surprise. So if you want to have a healthy life, then try and have as much as surprises in your life, good, healthy surprises. Having a loving, caring family. And in that family, when you have surprises, nothing better than that. You're going to feel so good about it. You have a loving family, caring family. They love you, and then they surprise you. You're well balanced, finished. What more do you want in life? This is what surprise do to you. And repeating pattern means you're finished. Life is over. You cannot do more on that. So now that we've come to the end section, now what we need to understand is, before I end on Precious Brain Lab, that when we talk on what we need to do, we also need to understand that dopamine is not just about reward, it can also mess up your life. So don't repeat patterns until you know that it's benefiting you. It's giving you some kind of benefit. Stop masturbation, sex addictions, alcohol, porn. All this is not good. Have a meaning in life. Get to people who love you. You're being with them. I'm alone. I only, my family's neuroscience, nothing else. So please don't talk about me. So when we come to the end section, then let us try and understand what can we do to control dopamine. So as you can see, that to have a meaning in terms of activity and connectivity, the first lesson, to have a meaning. The meaning means logic, the prefrontal cortex. When you have meaning in terms of activity and connectivity, then dopamine won't spike anywhere and everywhere. Dopamine will be in control. Because there's a meaning, you're motivating to do more. You're learning things in that activity. And in connections, if you have meaningful connections, trust me, you won't regret that connection. Please don't, I want to say something before I move further. That people judge relationship on the basis of outer traits. My partner should be good looking. My partner should be beautiful or handsome. My partner should have good looks. This is all nonsense. You don't know what is happening inside of them. Just because they look good, it doesn't mean you're going to have a good relationship. Look at the actor and actresses. They look so good. Why can't they have a stable relationship? Because your inside section is wrecked. Find a meaningful relationship means it doesn't matter how your partner looks. If you have a good understanding between the two, even if you grow old, the relationship never dies. You enjoy each other's company because you have a good understanding between the two of you. And that dopamine will maintain the level of connection between the two, deepens the bond between the two of you. That is why I say have meaning. Then comes find a reason to feel happy. Don't just spike in anywhere and everywhere. Go for shopping here and there. You spike dopamine. Don't do that. Find a reason why you want to be happy. And when you find that reason, then you spike dopamine. It will stay in control. You'll feel good about yourself. Then comes the clarity in thoughts and achieving goals. Motivation means clarity in thoughts and achieving goals. The day you do this, I guarantee you, you're controlling your dopamine is best. If you have a good life, then try and achieve your goals by motivating yourself in the right direction. Don't just spike your hand everywhere that you think it's right. Have clarity of thoughts. Do some research. Try and understand. And then you go for that motivation and push yourself and do what you want to do and achieve your goals. If you spike before achieving goals, like, you don't know how it is, you have not done your research, then you can turn into depression. If it doesn't get it right, please try to understand. So in both the conditions, you need to analyze. Then comes the part of healthy motivation and not feeding motivation with toxic thoughts. Healthy motivation means that let's say you want to lose weight, you want to do some exercise, you want to have a better connection with your partner, you want to have better connection with your kids. You're motivating yourself to get a better connection in all of this. You want to learn something new. You want to get into a certain course. You want to get a certification. These things are like, healthy motivation, and not feeding motivation with toxic thoughts. Toxic thoughts are something that destroys your cognition. Motivating your toxic thoughts, let's say you would say, you know what? I don't have this relationship with my partner. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find somebody else. So you're feeding that thought. You're motivating it to leave this connection, go out and do it with someone else. Oh, you know what? I don't care about my sibling. Get lost. I'm going to go out and live my life all alone. My sibling is caring for me. I give a damn about my sibling. Get lost. I'll go out and find someone else. A better friend and a person who understands me. Even if your sibling is right, that they're stopping you from doing something wrong, still you will just leave your sibling behind. You want to go out and you want to do certain activity which motivates from a different headspace, finding toxic friends and destroying your life. So toxic thoughts are very dangerous. If you feed them with dopamine, you'll go ahead and do it and destroy your life. Having sex at a very early age, not understanding how to do it, that is also toxic. So you should understand situations, understand the part of that motivation. Why are you motivating inside of you? And is it good for me or bad for me? Analyze it. Calm yourself down. Use logic. Logic controls dopamine. That is a straight business. If you are wrecked, you're losing your control, impulsivity increases, then please try to understand. Don't do anything with it, or else your life will be destroyed. Dopamine means well balanced from inside. Utilize, be smart. Smart means I'll go in this direction and I'm going to spike dopamine. Selective attention. Number 2. Number 3, every day do an activity that calms you down. And that's how you'll control dopamine. If you don't do any activities, if you stress out your body, then your body will motivate you to go into wrong direction and get addicted to certain type of food, alcohol, drugs, or any other sort of addictions. And before I end up here, please, I've seen that a lot of people watch my videos, but they don't subscribe much. Now, I don't know why this is happening. Like, either they, it doesn't take you anything. That's all I'm saying. Please subscribe, I'm requesting you. You're watching, and I can see that you're watching a lot, but no one's subscribing it. It takes you just one click to subscribe and do it. I'm giving you that knowledge. Then why can't you be with me? Stick. You see, for you all, I'm ready to go to the jungle and experiment with the animals as well. Subscribe. I'll come up with new videos. I will talk on dopamine in future as well. I'll come up with more videos. There are many videos I'm going to come up with. Please subscribe. Talking on deeper things. ADHD is there, autism, bipolar disorder, schizophrenics. These things are upscales. I'm going to talk on all of this as well in the future. Subscribe. I'm going to help you. I see that, how many of you are just watching, no one is subscribing it. But anyways, at least of watching it, you're getting benefit. Even though I still say, please watch. At least watch. Because it's for your own benefit. That's what I'm doing it. So, even if you have any questions, please email us on preciousbrainlab@gmail.com. It's down in the description below. You can email us and we'll answer your questions if you have any questions. We're here to help you all in any way that we can. So I'm going to end here. Your mental health is important to your family. God bless you all. Everybody, everyone out there was struggling with mental illness, with struggling with to cope up with their stress levels. All of them was struggling, even making a decision or not able to open up. God bless everyone out there, everyone. It's from my heart. And stay happy, stay blessed. I will see you on a new video with a new light and learning more on the mental health. God bless you all. Thank you for your valuable time. It means a lot to me.